to Pals in Politics, the place to hear from those teaching, learning, and impacted by politics, government, citizenship, and democracy.
Hello there, and welcome back to the latest Pals in Politics, part of the Political Education for Students online politics classroom community. This is a chance where we get to cut through noise and talk to people who are living and experiencing politics in a whole series of ways, whether that's as a student, whether that's as someone in the world of work, or someone who's just got an opinion on something that's really interesting that is shaped by the world of politics. And as part of these podcasts, we give you the unedited, unfiltered perspectives of people who have been willing to go on the record for us. And if you want to see an extended version of this conversation, you can do at the Politics Classroom community, the link of which is in the comments. Please also feel free to add your thoughts as well as click the subscribe button below. So let's get into it. I'm absolutely delighted today that we're joined by George Tallett. Hi, George.
Hi.
And we're really fortunate that George is someone who is right in the thick of being a student of politics, right in the thick of it. He's first year student at the University of Nottingham, studying politics and international relations. So if you're listening to this and you're currently ploughing through your A-levels, you're revising for exams, or you're thinking about whether or not politics is a degree you're interested in, I'm sure George is going to be really, really helpful and interesting to hear this afternoon. So welcome, George. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So let's start with the big one. With a million degrees out there, an endless possibility, why did you choose Nottingham, and why did you choose politics for your undergraduate journey?
Well, politics at A-level really drew me in. It was so interesting for me. I really found my thing in that subject. And searching for unis, whatnot. I'm fairly local to Nottingham, so it was kind of a go-to as, what's in the area. And I just really, really loved the uni. And when I went on the website, explored the course, it was just really clicked with me.
Brilliant. That's really good to hear. One of the students best summed up to me that I used to teach. This was a few years ago, but she said to me, Mr. Nichols, I want somewhere where it's close enough that if I have to drop off washing, it's not impossible, but not somewhere too close that my parents can drop in unannounced.
Exactly. That's how I feel.
I thought that was a really nice way of summing it up. So obviously you're doing politics, and you said that it really appealed to you. What about the university course really appealed to you?
Well, looking at it, it was just sort of more of a continuation of what I'd done at A-level. Modules seemed similar, but not too similar. So I would have good enough knowledge to kind of go in and attack it really well with what I knew, but I still had a lot to learn, especially with the international relations, as A-level is just solely politics focused.
And what have been your modules this year so far?
So I have taken 2 that have been on politics and the theory behind them. So thinking about things like Plato and Socrates and the foundations of democracy, that sort of thing. I've taken 2 on international relations, sort of one as an introduction, and the one I'm working on now, which is more the current affairs of the world, talking a lot about, we're getting more into Donald Trump and this sort of relations between the UK and the US. And then I've taken one on sort of just a baseline of politics and more the things such as liberalism, conservatism, which was a continuation of what I did at A-level. And now I'm looking at the Constitution and issues, like positive aspects of it.
Okay, and what's your favourite one so far?
The Constitution. I just really love picking apart it because I have such a, I would like to say, balanced view of areas where I really think things should change, areas where I really think it's working well.
And is this the UK Constitution?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, a really, really interesting topic. So now that you're actually in the lecture halls and you're experiencing uni life, is it what you expected? You said you were wanting to build on a continuation from A-level. How similar is it? How different is it? Any surprises?
I'd like to say it's fairly similar. It's another step up, I would say, but it's not daunting. It's nothing to be really scared of or to be like you need to do extra work for. It's just more of a continuation, but at more of a higher level, I would say. But the whole uni life, everything is just what I expected. It's just amazing.
Brilliant. And what would you say to those people who are watching they're thinking about a politics course, but they haven't done politics A level?
There's no need to like stress over something like that. I'd say just keep on top of maybe current affairs. Just keep reading the news, keep seeing what's going on, and maybe do a bit of background on just general things to do with maybe some parties, just to get yourself familiarized with politics as a whole.
Okay, but you don't think it's a barrier to people that don't do it at school?
No, I don't think it's a massive barrier. I know some people who have taken politics who didn't do it at A level, but they're still getting on really well with it, and they've really clicked with the course.
Brilliant. And do you get to explore politics in any way outside of the academic lens? So are you involved in politics in any way outside of your course?
Not personally, I would say. I'm a member of the Politics Society, but it's more focused just on my work, and there's a lot to get. There is a very decent amount to get through. So while I'm getting through that, there's just keeping on that and keeping on the news.
Yeah, it's terms are a lot shorter, aren't they? And there's a lot more to do in terms of watching. Absolutely. Okay, so what's the end game? Once you've graduated, do you have any idea where you want this to take you?
Well, recently I've been looking a lot more into teaching politics. I feel as if it's more of a calling for me. And it's a subject that I love so much, and I feel like I could do a lot of good teaching politics to students, but then also giving my own take of it. But yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I before I set up political education for students last April, I was a history and politics teacher for 18 years. And I always said that it was really interesting because everyone assumes history and politics are quite similar. But as a teacher, they were two really different subjects. So like history, you could pull off what you did the year before and it not really have changed. But you could end up having to rewrite an entire politics sort of course because of events that happened over the last year.
Yeah, I really enjoy the fact that it's so like fresh and it's always changing. It's such a fun subject to keep up with, I think.
Brilliant. And what would be your advice then to people, let's say people who are about to go off to university this year, as they finish their A levels and they've got that bit of time between finishing the long summer, between finishing the A levels and starting the course? Is there anything other than watching the news you'd recommend they do?
I'd say that's the key thing, really, because the current affairs are always, let alone interesting. They're always relevant. What's going on and always changing is always going to affect your life, and even if it's not really affecting your life, I think it's going to affect something else, potentially what comes in the future, what you may learn, what you may find interesting.
And are there any particular sources you would recommend?
Well, news sources, people have their own opinions of, the impartiality of some of them. I would very strongly recommend BBC News, I think. As my old politics teacher used to say, both sides of Parliament would always say how biased it is. And I think if both sides are arguing the bias, then there must be some level of non-bias to it.
I always say that about Laura Koonsberg, that actually she's seen by the right as a complete lefty and by the left as a complete sort of right-wing conservative. And so I suppose it means she's doing something right if you're displeasing both sides.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what do you make of the fact that 64, according to the John Smith Youth Poll that was done in 2025, what do you make of the fact that 64% of young people, and by young people it was talking between 16 and 18, what do you make of the fact that 64% apparently have TikTok as their primary source of politics news?
I would say I'm not overly surprised. social media is a huge part of, content for people of that age group. Everyone I knew at that age is on that social media. Everyone I know now is on that social media, and it's so easy to access. It's so easy to search up anything and just get a result. And the less people that watch TV, general TV, are moving towards other different sources, whether that just be off your phone or off something like TikTok.
And as someone who's studying politics, what would you say to people who are, or maybe you wouldn't say anything, but people who are using TikTok as a primary source of news? Would you add any caveats to that, or would you give any advice to that as for people that are looking to actually study politics as an academic discipline?
I would say you definitely need to expand your sources. I'd say it's always good looking at other sources that maybe display a bias, because I think it's good to see how other sides of the spectrum sort of work in their own views. But I don't overly see it as a bad thing, because you can get such a wide range of opinions just off of an app like TikTok. It's quite helpful, actually, I think, for young people to access so easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a tool, isn't it? And like any tool, it's what you do with it and how you use it. Okay, so let's get a little bit controversial here. Obviously, you are now of voting age, but I imagine it wasn't that long ago you were between the ages of 16 and 18. Now, am I right in thinking you don't think the voting age should be lowered to 16?
Yes, I am against the idea of the voting age being lowered.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. Why, first of all?
Well, I see very, very little education for under 16s, especially in politics. I mean, when I started my A-level course, I was just about to turn 17. So I went into politics, and if I'd been able to vote, I'd almost gone a year without any political knowledge. So I think purely off of that, it's a very big negative, because if you have this even larger franchise with being politically illiterate, I just think it's just a negative. As we said, TikTok is a very big platform for people to access the news or for people to access their political knowledge. Very, very vocal people seem to be on TikTok and get through to young people. I know Nigel Farage is quite a popular creator on there.
Isn't he the most followed UK politician?
I think so, and he's very vocal on his opinions on there. A lot of people there seems to be more almost an idolization of him with a lot of people. And I think if young people are being exposed to that from the young ages of even up to 12, 13 who are accessing TikTok, I think overexposure to very specific areas are going to just cloud your view. And without political knowledge, it's going to be very hard to kind of get out of that view of just what you have seen is correct.
Okay. Do you think there's a paradox in what you've just said, though, in terms of that TikTok's really handy and really useful and lots of opinion and information out there, and then it being an argument that part of an argument you've just made for not allowing 16-year-olds to vote because they use TikTok?
Well, I think it's not solely based on TikTok, but I think more for the wide range of opinions, you do have to go searching rather than just simply scrolling or just searching up something like UK politics. I think you kind of have to go looking, which is why it is a helpful tool, because there's such a wide variety of being able to look. But if you are going to solely just look up something like UK politics, you are going to get streamlined into the very vocal creators.
So would you say then it's about the ability to think critically and have a base of knowledge that you can then use to evaluate what you're seeing online?
Yes, exactly. You kind of have to very much filter through what you are looking for, I guess, if you want to research more on things like Nigel Farage Reform UK, or if you want to go out there and find a wider range than just the very vocal people on TikTok. it's more up to you to use your thinking, really, to find what you're looking for.
So what would you say then to the fact that a lot of people who are 18 have never had political education? Why do those 2 years difference matter?
Well, I think the more the ages of 16 to 18 you are, more you are maturing, really. Your opinions are becoming more mature, more rational, rather than being more of an impressionable child, really. Very much what happens to people in a young age can stick with them. However, when I think you are maturing into this young adult, you are going to think more critically, and you are going to be able to use more thought into what you are doing, rather than just being fed almost what's being shown in front of you.
Why do you think this is being introduced? What's your thoughts of that as someone that's studying politics?
I think there potentially people are just wanting to participate. Maybe there's been a calling, like it was a Lib Dem almost policy in their manifesto about a decade back. I'm not totally sure, but I think it's been a subject of debate for quite a while. And I think maybe just more people wanting to get involved without actually realizing how big of an impact they're going to have. Like it's going to extend the franchise quite a significant amount.
Absolutely. And how do you think that's going to play out in terms of policy and politics and IR?
I think they're going to have to look at a lot more things for younger people. However, I don't think it would change a lot. It just seems to be something given to people before they are almost considered an adult. However, I don't really see a massive amount of policy change that would benefit these 16 to going on 18-year-olds, because once you are 18, you are an adult in the eyes of the law.
And what would you say to people that say, well, you can do other things at 16, like you can, if I'm correct, you can join the armed forces, you can obviously you've got certain other rights in terms of sexual relationships. Why is voting different?
I would see voting as quite a mature topic. However, I would also see maybe the armed forces and relations quite a mature topic. And I think maybe it being introduced to people of that age is not damaging, I would say, but I feel like it's maybe a freedom that shouldn't be given as much, purely because I think it takes more critical thinking of being a fully mature going into being an adult, rather than still in that developing phase.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, if you think about people on your course and at your university, are you an outlier here, or is this quite a popular belief that you have?
From people I know, I feel like it's a very kind of a 50-50 split, I'd say. I feel like some people I know share the opinion with me. However, some people also think that they don't really see the harm in it if they're going to be given the option to study this subject, or they're going to be given the option such as being able to move into things like the armed forces, which are mature areas. People see that it's not really a bad thing, as it just opens another door to them.
And if you hadn't done A-level politics, how much political education do you think you would have had going out of school?
I feel like I would have had very little, to be honest. Before my A-level, we were given very sort of short blasts of political knowledge for half an hour a week, maybe twice a year. So I feel like I would have gone into being 18 and being like, I'm able to vote, but it wouldn't affect me as a person, however it does now, because I really understand what goes on.
Yeah, and this is exactly what political education for students is all about. The idea that we don't let people just drive a car without actually teaching them how to do it first. And doing lessons isn't something you choose to do. You have to do it. And yet it seems to be a different standard when it comes to this responsibility, which ultimately impacts everyone. So that's what we're all about. So I can certainly see what you're saying there, and I think your experience of what you've just said is quite common. A lot of people feel that unless you do A-level politics or GCSE citizenship, you don't have access to that. Just one last question before we take a break. Votes at 16, I mean, short of something unexpected happening, votes at 16 is coming. Obviously, as you've said already, a lot of parties support it. The Labour Party have a majority. An election is unlikely at the moment. So it's probably going to happen. If we accept that, even if you're against it, what do you think needs to be done to help prepare young people beyond just saying teach politics?
Well, I think it really needs to be more integrated into the educational system. Maybe GCSE politics to teach those who are going to be able to vote by the time they are sitting their exams. They really should have the knowledge to be knowing what they're doing, because I feel it's quite, I can see how it could be quite poor to not overly have a grasp on what you are maybe voting for, what you are choosing to do, because effectively you are choosing the people to make decisions for you that will impact your life heavily. And whether or not people at 16 will feel that this will actually impact them, I think they really need to understand the message that it really will impact them, what is going to happen when they elect someone.
Do you think politics, either through GCSE citizenship or its own course, should be a compulsory component at GCSE like maths is?
I can see the argument for and against it, really. Like how it's given the option at A level. To me, I feel like it's a really core part of what like participating in society is. I feel it's really important, but I know some people would also argue that to them, people may never vote. People may just opt out or waste their vote, or just watch the news, see who's going to be predicted to win by the polls, and just follow that. So I can understand both sides, but to me, I really feel like it should be a compulsory thing, because it really, really applies to being a citizen of anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah, and just before we go to that break, then, what would you? And just in case someone doesn't watch our extended part, we've obviously got lots of people who are finishing GCSEs and picking A-level subjects at the moment, or picking courses at college. What would be your message to them about why they should pick or consider picking politics for A-level if it is an option?
I feel it's very vital to education. I feel like if you are interested in the political world, or if you feel you want to gain knowledge in that area, I feel like it's vital. However, I understand with A-levels and maybe college courses, you need to be more specific with what you want to choose. If you want to go into a specific line of work, maybe politics isn't what's needed. If you want to finish your studies after your GCSEs, I can understand as well why you wouldn't move forward choosing things like politics. However, I would really, really push for people to choose it, because I think it's really important that people are politically literate in the world, because you are making decisions that are going to impact everyone else. And if you don't have the correct knowledge really to vote properly and vote for everyone in the country, it could really impact everyone, I guess, and including now 16-year-olds when they're given the ability to vote.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, George. Just take a breath for a moment. We're going to have a quick break. If you want to hear the extended version of this episode, you can go to our community link that is in the comments. Please feel free to also share what you think about what George has said. And if you agree with him, please show that support. If you want to challenge, please also show that as well. And we'll be back on our extended version on the community. Thank you very much, George.